Let's talk about the fucking Nets. All right. 49.5 at Circa and Superbook, the books that we regard as a little bit sharper. 51.5 at PointsBet if you want a higher number for the under. This number obviously moved a lot after Kevin Durant retracted his trade request. The message I'm gonna say here over and over again is don't bet this. You're gonna talk if you are a bettor and you pay attention to the NBA, you will either have an impulse to be like, are you kidding me? You expect me to trust this team? No way. Like KD's probably going to ask out. Kyrie's going to fuck off to who knows where. I'm taking the under. Like there's so much value here. Or you're going to be like KD and Kyrie. No COVID concerns. They got better with the additions. Look at like, I don't care. KD, Kyrie, healthy Ben Simmons. This number is way too low. We thought this team was going to win their number was 56.5 last year. I think people are sleeping. I'm on the Nets. Just don't. There's no reason to bet this number, people. Like, there's no reason to bet on the Brooklyn Nets for anything. It's not, I very rarely take a position of actually asking people that are involved in the betting. If you are not like a professional gambler whose opinion I respect a lot, if you're just like a casual bettor, I am begging you, please don't bet on this team. Either way, what's your projection for Nets?
So I largely agree with that, with this exception. Please don't bet on this over-under. Please don't bet on a median expected outcome for the team. If you want to bet on an extreme outcome, okay, I can do that. I think the Brooklyn Nets, and this is my projection, the Brooklyn Nets are the East New Orleans Pelicans. That's what the Nets are. I have the Nets fourth on offense. I think they could be number one on offense if everything goes well. I have them 23rd on defense. They're not going to be good. We know this. We know they're not going to be a good defensive team. The question is, can they be average or bad or terrible? And those things matter. Which one of those answers it is, I think, is your answer to the question. So I always do the similar teams thing. And I thought that was really telling for this one. So here are some of the teams that come out similar to the Nets. If you're looking at, okay, who's a team that finished about fourth on offense, 23rd on defense? By the way, that puts them about 46 to 54 wins. Yeah. So again, stay away from the number. It's right in the middle. Here are the similar teams. Brooklyn from 2 years ago. Duh, that kind of makes sense. Denver from 2 of the last 3 years. Lots of offense on the defense. Dallas, not last year, but the 2 years before. So not the one where the defense got really good. The 2 where Luka did everything and they just had enough defense to, again, like Denver. Houston, 2019. So that's the team with Harden and Chris Paul and Clint Capella. That's a similar team. That's a similar sort of construction of superstar, second star point guard, one defender. So, and the Pelicans, this year's Pelicans are another similar team to that range. I don't know really what the team is, but those teams we just said, they're not teams I want to bet on median expected outcomes at all. I want no part.
I will even push back on the outliers. You're getting a higher number, but I don't find them to be more or less likely than any of the other ones. Like when you start talking about this, I began considering the idea of what if you took to miss the playoffs and the number 1 seed. But then I thought, is that any more or less likely than them winning 51? Just winning 51 games right in between the two numbers. If you have an over, you hit. If you have an under, you lose. Or you have an under, you win. If you have an over, you win between 49.5 and 51.5. Is a number 1 seed or out of the play? There's so much.
But let me respond to that from like a math perspective. No, absolutely. The outliers are not more likely. But if you think of our friend, the bell curve, in most teams, you have this kind of fat curve in the middle, and you're going to end up somewhere in that big fat middle. With Brooklyn, I think the curve is flattened. So the ends, the extremes are more likely than most teams, and the moderate outcomes are less likely. So like miss the playoffs is 12-1. If you don't like this team, if you think that they might trade guys, they might tank if they do, they might just have injuries, Kyrie might walk off the edge of the earth. If you think any of those things, 12-1 on that extreme end of a higher extreme curve, I think is in play. I don't like the other end of the extreme personally, but if you like it, you're right. it's not more likely than 51 or 50 that they're going to get there, but it is more likely than a lot of other teams' extreme versions, I think.
Yeah, I get it. I have a quote from everyone's favorite executive, the anonymous NBA executive. I asked a veteran who's been in the league a long time about what was his sense on what's going to happen with the trades with Brooklyn, if they're going to stand pat or if this is eventually going to come back up, if Katie's going to ask out. And his direct quote, which he said I could quote him on, was "Who fucking knows?" That was the actual direct quote. So, like, there's just a sense of no one thinks that. I talked to an analytics person who he has a background in game theory. It says made a lot of sense. He just said you're not dealing with. He's like, in the NBA, you're very often not dealing with rational actors, which makes game theory impossible. With Brooklyn, you're dealing with decidedly irrational actors, so you simply can't make adjustments. Look, if you think the KD and Kyrie are going to play the whole season, if KD's not going to get hurt and Kyrie's going to play and Simmons is going to play, this is a really good team. They add TJ Warren. That's a really good pickup. They add Royce O'Neal. That's a really good pickup for their defense. That makes up, I think, to a degree for losing Bruce Brown. I think Bruce Brown's better and more impactful, but that helps.
Yeah.
They
had, by the way, Joe Harris back this year and Harris, all season of Seth Curry. Well, we're doing the good picture. The good picture is they get Joe back and Seth all season too. There's a lot of guys here if things go well.
I'm just saying, like, there's still been a lot of. I will say that, like, wait to hear on Joe Harris. If literally you betting on the Brooklyn Nets is whether or not you think Joe Harris is healthy, wait until camp and make sure that he was a full participant. I'm serious. Like, this is his. That injury has had a lot of people concerned at the deadline. They had Markieff Morris. I think you downgrade them for that. I'm sorry, I do. I just think that if you add a Morris brother, you should be downgraded. I think you should lose points in the power rating. We don't do the do you want your money tied up a lot question. And the reason is because you and I both like the futures market. And we feel, especially in the NBA, there may be more value playing long-term sustainable futures across an 82-game season and into the playoffs rather than playing night to night because of how unstable a number of things we always talk about are. But I will say, if there's any team that's like, do you want to be watching your bet value? Like, do you want to be checking your account and seeing that ticket when Durant has to miss time? Durant has a lot of miles on him, had the Achilles, missed time this season, missed a serious chunk of the season. His recovery from the Achilles has been by far the best of any player I've ever seen, including Dominique Wilkins, who was first team All-NBA after coming back. KD's been the best. It still causes a lot of issues, and he gets banged up, and that's okay. He's going to miss time. They're not going to prioritize it. Kyrie Irving, period. What more do I need to say here? Nash.
Yeah, agreed. I was going to bring that up if you didn't. We don't know if he's a good coach yet, on the court or off the court.
KD tried to get him fired. Like,
if we don't know what that means either, but there's a whole lot of question marks on the team.
Yeah, if this starts badly and Nash gets fired, Jacques Vaughn is the most likely candidate to take over from the Orlando Magic days. Did not go well there. Vaughn's a very well-respected coach. He's very well-respected despite the Orlando, and there's been a lot of good coaches that did not work in Orlando. But you don't look at that and go like, wow. You do not look at, if Jacques Vaughn takes over, we're not going to be running towards futures. That's not.
I don't know. I don't know what the Brooklyn scenario is where we're running towards futures. So you're right.
Center rotation is Nick Claxton, Day'Ron Sharpe, who I like a lot. Ben Simmons.
I don't.
So
Ben, maybe if they decide to finally let him do it, if he decides to do it.
I don't want to bet anything with this team.
Let me try to sell you on two bets potentially. If you are listening, we're not going to bet these. I'm not going to bet these. Okay. But if you're listening and you want to bet the Nets, how about seeding? DraftKings seeding over under 3.5. Juice the same on both sides. I like the over on that because I can very, very easily tuck myself into 3 teams in the regular season that I trust and like more than the Nets.
I can't.
Okay.
When KD was playing, they were at a 52-win pace even before Kyrie got back.
All right. The other one is they are 5-1 to make the play-in. They just did that last year. That's already the version that we saw of this team. I feel like if you are thinking about the 12-1 to miss the playoffs, I think you have to maybe just take the 5-1 play-in instead because they're probably going to come out of the play-in. So
I would literally take the 12-1 and pay whatever I have to on the money line to head. Like if you're gonna do like that's what I would do. Because then you're covered if they fall short, if they like that's what I would do. I wouldn't take the 5-1.
Okay. Last Nets question for you. You kind of did this already, but finish the story. Everything goes within reasonable outcomes. Everything goes well for the Nets this year. What's the ceiling? Like, where do they end up? Are they the 1 seed? Did they win the title? How far does this team go in the reasonable best expectation?
They're over. They win the division. They're within a game of another team for the best record in the East. And we look at them as the favorite to win the title.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. That's about what I would say. I think I have them about 16% in the division. So they're not in the running. They're not the favorite. I think over one of the best teams in the East. I think number 1 offense is a reasonable expectation. If things click, I still would probably have them out in a Eastern Conference Finals. I think to me, that's the reasonable ceiling of where the team can go.
I said that we consider them the favorites. I didn't say we would bet them.
So I understand.
That's
I heard that clarity from you loud and clear.